Hello viewers, once again it's me, Ewaenruwa Nomaren, and this is my channel, It Pays to Fear God. This is where we learn about God, His beloved Son Jesus Christ, and their kingdom purpose, the three most important subjects that we can ever learn about, talk about, or discuss in the entire Holy Bible according to John chapter 17 verse 3. The subject that I've prepared for you and myself today is captioned Revenge and Its Consequences. However, before I get into that, I once again have a tune that some of us might be familiar with, and while the tune's playing, if you are interested, you are completely free to go ahead and click the subscribe button and also the notification bell so that you can be the first to come when we make new videos. Once again, the subject that I've prepared for you and myself today is captioned Revenge and Its Consequences. What is revenge exactly? Well, revenge is when we pay evil for evil. In the King James Version, it's usually called recompense. When you recompense somebody, it means to pay evil for evil or also good for good. But revenge is when somebody does evil to us, then we hate that person, and in order to satisfy the hatred that we've built towards that person, we do evil back to them. However, is this deed really good? And if so, does the Bible really support this? There are some examples in the Bible of people who had committed revenge, and we can see the consequences, rather good or bad, that had come from it. For example, Joab in 2 Samuel chapter 3, from verses 27 to 29, had killed Abner because Abner in a war had killed his brother, Joab's brother, Asahel. This is revenge because Joab's brother Asahel was killed by Abner. Then Joab felt offended by this. He was angry, and then he went to go kill Abner. David was very angry at Joab about this because Abner was actually planning and moving to bring the rest of Israel, the 10 tribes, back to David so that they could rule together. And that was a very good thing, a part of God's plan. And then because of one thing that Abner had done by killing Asahel, then Joab said, I'm going to kill this guy. And then he did it. And then David was so angry that he cursed Joab, saying that everybody in your family is going to rather have leprosy, or there's just something that is going to happen to them. And it's not going to be very good. And that actually came to pass. If you read 1 Kings chapter 2 and verses 5, 6, 33, and 34. It's a very typical example of revenge, and the consequences were also there. Another example is in 1 Kings chapter 19 from verses 1 to 7. Previously, in chapter 18 of 1 Kings from verses 1 to 40, there we see Elijah, after sort of competing with the believers of Baal when there was a sacrifice made, then Elijah said that the 450 prophets of Baal should all be slaughtered and killed. When Jezebel found out about this, she was very angry, just like Joab was with the other story, and then Jezebel wanted to kill Elijah. And if not for God allowing him to be fed by ravens and the other stuff, Jezebel would have easily succeeded, because then Elijah would have died of hunger and everything else would have went badly. But the idea is that Jezebel wanted to commit revenge because Elijah had done something, even though it was in God's favor, that was evil, remember, quotation marks, evil in Jezebel's sight, even though it was righteous before God. So those are some examples of revenge in the Bible. In these last days, or generally, righteous ones of God will always be persecuted. But we have never been given the license as Christians to take revenge on people that persecute us because it is a law. It is something that happens. So long as righteousness as a whole is persecuted, though the wounds of righteousness, spiritually and prophetically speaking, will be healed, if we read Psalms chapter 147 verse 3, until that time happens, which is now, things are happening, the righteous ones of God will always be persecuted. But we can never take revenge on the people who do so. If we read 1 Peter chapter 2 verse 23, St. Peter talking about how we should always be like Jesus Christ, had stated, who, though he was reviled not again. When he suffered, threatened not, but committed himself to him that judgeth righteously. What St. Peter meant by this was, when Jesus Christ was persecuted, when he suffered and so on, he did not take revenge, because of course persecution is evil, and he didn't do evil to people like the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the scribes, all the people that were against him. He didn't go kill them, apart from simply cursing them, woe unto thee, and the other verbal, non-violent stuff. He didn't actually take revenge on them, and we Christians should be the same. And the apostles, the successors of Jesus Christ, weren't different. If we read Acts chapter 5, in verses 41 and 42. They rejoiced when they were persecuted. They didn't go take revenge on them. Well, you paid me evil, so I have to pay you evil back. No, they did not take revenge, but rather they celebrated that they are persecuted because they know that when we are persecuted, it is a great indicator that we are doing the right thing. And Jesus Christ himself had said the same thing in Matthew chapter 5 from verses 10 to 12. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceeding glad, for great is the reward in heaven. For so persecuted they the prophets which were before you. Once again, Matthew chapter 5 from verses 10 to 12. Another example of somebody not taking revenge based on persecution was David. This isn't really persecution in the sense that he was actually suffering from a curse God gave on him after he committed adultery with Bathsheba in 2 Samuel chapter 11. But in chapter 16 of 2 Samuel, from verses 5 to 14, there was a guy named Shimei who was cursing David. Remember, David was a king, and it was an abomination for somebody of no worth to literally be cursing a king. And there was a guy named Abishai who was one of his men of war. And then the guy offered to David, please, I just need to cut off this guy's head. You can't have somebody cursing you. Just give me the permission, and I'm going to go cut off the guy's head. But then David told him, no, you are not going to take revenge because God cursed me, and he said he's going to curse me, so therefore you should do nothing to him. And us Christians should be like this. In fact, in Matthew chapter 5, from verses 38 to 41, Jesus Christ said, if somebody hits one of our cheeks, what should we do? Turn to the other cheek also. This isn't literal, but it means we should never take revenge on everybody, especially if it is persecution, because persecution is a process that all righteous ones have to go through. It's very important that we keep this in mind. The only person that is ever going to exist in this world who is allowed to take revenge is God himself, and anybody who he directly gives license to do so. God is allowed to take revenge because he is not a sinner, and he owns this world. Sinners can't take revenge on other sinners, but God can take revenge on anybody because he is not only a spirit, but he rules the whole world, and he doesn't have sin. That was why in Romans chapter 12 and verses 17 and 19, St. Paul told us, recompense to no man evil for evil. Provide honest things in the sight of all men. Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. St. Paul was partially quoting Deuteronomy chapter 32, in verses 35 and 39, where God himself had stated, "To me belongeth vengeance and recompense. Their foot shall slide in due time. For the day of their calamity is at hand, and the things that shall come upon them make haste. See now that I, even I am he, and there is no God with me. I kill, and I make alive. I wound, and I heal. Neither is there any that can deliver out of my hand." Once again, Deuteronomy chapter 32, and verses 35 and 39. And in Nahum chapter 1, verse 2, Nahum the prophet, under God's inspiration, had stated, "God is jealous, and the Lord revengeth. The Lord revengeth, and is furious. The Lord will take vengeance upon his adversaries, and he reserveth wrath for his enemies." Once again, God is the only person who is qualified to take vengeance on his enemies, and he does from time to time. For example, in Judges chapter 15, from verses 1 to 20, God himself took vengeance on the Philistines using Samson at the time, and he took vengeance on the Philistines because of what the Philistines had done to the Israelites. He'd also taken revenge on Edom, if you read Ezekiel chapter 25 from verses 12 to 17. He'd taken revenge on the Amalekites in 1 Samuel chapter 15 from verses 1 to 9. At least though Saul failed, that was the plan, because of what they'd done in Exodus chapter 17 verse 8, later reminded by Moses in Deuteronomy chapter 25 from verses 17 to 29. Because the Amalekites, when the Israelites were traveling from Egypt to Canaan, had charged at them and taken the back people, the seniors, people who couldn't run as fast as the others who were more agile, etc. God remembered that, and that was why he told King Saul in 1 Samuel chapter 15 from verses 1 to 3 that because the Amalekites had done something very horrible and they offended me in Exodus chapter 17 verse 8, I want you to come after them and destroy everything. Don't leave anything, whether it's cattle, woman, man, beast, anything. Destroy every single thing that you see in their boundaries. And in these last days too, God is taking vengeance upon his enemies. If we read that Jeremiah chapter 10 verse 10, Jeremiah the prophet had stated, "The Lord is the true God. He is the living God and an everlasting King. At his wrath the earth shall tremble, and the nations shall not be able to abide his indignation." But when we talk about the vengeance that is going to be taking place in these last days, what do I exactly mean by that? Well, God has prepared a place for all his righteous ones. Place doesn't mean physical. He has principles that he has set up, and he has said that we should follow such principles. He is redeeming Zion in these last days from his vengeance. If we read Isaiah chapter 59 verse 20, "And the Redeemer shall come to Zion, and unto them that turn from transgression in Jacob, saith the Lord." But when we decide to move away from those principles that he has set up, move into the middle of the battle, the theater of war, then you know what happens when we decide to go there, and that is we are a part of the vengeance, and nobody wants that. But if we want to be a part of that, then the punishments that God has said are going to come on such people will unfortunately come upon us. And some of those things have been discussed in Isaiah chapter 9 from verses 10 to 12. "The bricks are fallen down, but we will build with hewn stones. The sycamores are cut down, but we will change them into cedars. Therefore the Lord shall set up the adversaries of Rezin against him, and join his enemies together." When we decide to be stubborn, God has no choice but to bring you into the vengeance that he's taken against his enemies, and that is going to make us miserable in these last days. All the institutions that God used to own, marriages, the political system, all the other stuff, because man has taken that to himself through, of course, the help of Satan the devil. God is taking vengeance on that thing, and such things as marriages, the economy, the political system, and the other stuff that used to prosper because God was a part of it are now not going to be prospering or working anymore, only for those that are stubborn to the fact that God is taking revenge and we need to stay back. If we read Isaiah chapter 26 in verses 20 and 21. But if we Know that the kingdom of God is being set up, and that is going to replace the kingdom of Satan and the devil that was formerly presiding in these last days. If we know about it, then we will stay away from the vengeance in these last days, and we will be celebrating the fact that God has come to redeem his children. We will be like the people in Psalms chapter 58, verse 10, stating, "The righteous shall rejoice when he seeth the vengeance. He shall wash his feet in the blood of the wicked," and will be like the people in Revelation chapter 19 from verses 1 to 6, who were celebrating the fact that God has come to redeem his children and fulfill the hopes of those people, since the ones that were after Jesus Christ, that were hoping that one day God is not only going to set up his kingdom, but that kingdom that he's going to set up, which has been set up in these last days, is going to take over all the nations of the world, given to Daniel in some kind of dream in Daniel chapter 2 verse 44, that is going to come and let all righteous ones inherit the land that the saints themselves were also hoping for in Revelation chapter 6 in verses 9 and 10, when the kingdom of God would take over everything and let righteous ones reign in peace. We do not want to be a part of God's revenge, so I hope that all of us can be aware of what it is so that we can stay behind and only celebrate what God is doing in these last days. But before I conclude, there is one more point that I want to make, and that point is that discipline isn't revenge. Many times kids are telling their parents when the parents want to discipline them, "Oh, you forgot Romans chapter 12 verse 19, and St. Paul said, 'Vengeance is mine, I will repay,' said the Lord," as an excuse to not be punished for their actions. But the Bible has himself advised two parents, train up a child in the way he should go, so that when he is old, he will not depart from it. If you also read verse 15 of that Proverbs chapter 22, chapter 23 verse 14, and Ephesians chapter 6 verse 4, and also Deuteronomy chapter 6 in verses 6 and 7. The Bible has made it clear that discipline is not revenge, and that is why it is advised. And just as how God takes revenge, he also disciplines his children, giving them stuff that will build up their faith and integrity in him. In Hebrews chapter 12, from verses 6 to 11, St. Paul had stated, "For whom the Lord loveth he chasteneth, and scourgeth every son whom he receiveth. If ye endure chastening, God dealeth with you as with sons. For what son is he whom the Father chasteneth not? But if ye be without chastisement, whereof all are partakers, then are ye bastards and not sons. Furthermore, we have had fathers of our flesh which corrected us, and we gave them reverence. Shall we not much rather be in subjection unto the Father of spirits, and live? For they verily for a few days chastened us after their own pleasure, but he for our profit, that we might be partakers of his holiness. Now no chastening for the present seemeth to be joyous, but grievous. Nevertheless afterward it yieldeth the peaceable fruit of righteousness unto them which are exercised thereby." Once again, Hebrews chapter 12, from verses 6 straight down to verse 11. Discipline isn't revenge. Discipline is for the benefit of the person that you're doing it to, but revenge is not for the benefit of the person that you're doing it to, but it is only to satisfy the hatred that you have built for that person because of probably something that they did to you before that time. Revenge isn't good, and we should never invest in doing so. I hope we viewers now all understand what it means to take revenge and why revenge is not a good act. All Christians say, "Oh, revenge isn't good," but we have to understand why it is so that we will never be tempted to do it. In Proverbs chapter 24 verse 29, King Solomon had said, "Say not, I will do so to him as he hath done to me. I will render to the man according to his works." We should never do so. Rather, when people do evil stuff to us, we should forgive them. Discipline them if they're in our disciplinary atmosphere, and we should give them the room to both repent and to build themselves back up rather than just putting evil back to them. Revenge is never good, and if we ever plan on doing it, the end will never be good. And I choose to end my talk on the subject revenge and its consequences. To conclude this episode, I once again have a tune that some of us will enjoy. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you learned something. Most importantly, please try to subscribe if you haven't already. Share this video and click the notification bell to be notified when we make future uploads. Thank you for listening.